Let's talk about pseudo-elements. We've already covered pseudo-classes, which CSS provides us in order to get references to very specific HTML elements based on the hierarchy that they're in, or whether or not they fit a particular selection that we're doing. Pseudo-elements are very similar to our pseudo-classes. The difference is that pseudo-elements a lot of times add additional content to your web page instead of just changing the style of the elements that you've selected. So there are about 13 pseudo elements provided to us by the CSS standard. And if you go to Mozilla Developer Network and you go to the CSS reference and you look at pseudo elements, you'll see those 13, I believe it's about 13 pseudo elements that we have that we can use. We're going to go through just two of them, or three of them actually. We're going to go through before, after, and selection so that we can see how this all works and what it affects and impacts. Now on our index.html, which is looking pretty ugly, we're going to go ahead and we are going to do some selections on, let's play with these two paragraph tags right here, and let's make some modifications to them. So they're in the getting started. So let's go find our getting started, and here are the two paragraphs. And just to make things simple, we are going to go ahead and make it so we can select these p tags pretty easy using just a class. So we'll say class, and we're going to say pretext. And then down here, we're going to do class. And we're going to do post text. And the reason why, I'm just picking class names for the fun of it. They relate to what we're going to do with the before and after pseudo elements. So let's go ahead and work with our pretext first. So let's go back to our main. And before. So let's talk about the before pseudo element. We are going to be looking for the p tag that has the class pretext. And then we are going to add before, the before pseudo element selector. And in here, we are going to go ahead and add some content to our page that doesn't exist. And we are going to say something like, so we're using the before, we're going to add some content, let's say important, and point to that text. So this text is super important, and we'll change the color to something that implies it is important. And let's go with, let's just go with red for the fun of it, because right now, oh, it wasn't red, it's black. Okay, so let's just go ahead and look at what that does right here. We can see that although in our HTML there is only this gibberish text in there, when we use the pseudo element of before, we can actually place some content before what is already inside of that paragraph tag, and we can change the color of it. So here we're saying important, watch out, this information is important. And then down here on the after, we can do a very similar thing, and we can say p.post text, I believe is what we gave it, and then we can use the pseudo element after. We can add some content to it, and we can say, oops, I didn't use my semicolon, my colon. And then we can say boring. And then we can point to the text. So let's point to the text right there. And then if it's boring, let's go ahead and use a muted color. And let's just do brown, because brown is boring. Go back and look at it. We can see important in red, boring in brown. We've kind of identified those paragraphs as having that. You might find some good uses for that as you dynamically, once you get into JavaScript and once you dynamically begin adding and removing content or begin to do things based on users' interaction with your web application, you might find uses for this by adding and removing classes to those elements. You can add and remove dynamic content by using the before and after pseudo-elements. Another cool one is the selection pseudo-element. And what it does is it allows you to dynamically change the styles of something in the web page based on a user selecting that text. As of right now, you get a blue background. That's kind of the default by the browser. But if you really wanted to highlight that text, you could change it using the selection pseudo-element. We can do that simply by doing a selection again. So let's just do any p tag. So let's say p tag, and then we can do selection. And now we can go ahead and change the way the selection looks by using this pseudo element. Let's say color equals, we're going to do the color, let's do green so we can make it really ugly. And then let's do the background color, and let's do red. Right, so now when we select text, you can see it's not the default with that blue anymore. It becomes red and green as we select that text. One thing you'll notice is that the content that we added dynamically using the before and after, you can't select it. It's like it's not even really a part of the page or actual text. So this is another way to make it so that that text that you put in the page can't actually be copied by the user. So here we go. We've just changed the selection. All right, so those are pseudo elements. Make sure you go to the Mozilla Developer Network, look at the CSS reference, and then go ahead and look at all of the pseudo elements that are provided to you. And as you begin working on your website, think about when you might use some of those pseudo elements. And as long as you know what's available to you, when you run into situations where it's applicable, you'll have something already pre-made for you instead of trying to figure it out yourself.